Hello, my dear sketchy friends. Today I thought I would share with you something a little bit different than I usually do, just like the variation. So I wanted to share with you this video of a commission that I did earlier in the year when I was back in the UK. And as you can see from the screenshot, this took me 6 hours. And as you can see, we're starting from after the pencil drawing, so we're actually just starting with the painting. Now, I don't know why I started filming from the painting side of things. I suppose maybe the pencil drawing part wasn't that interesting. My purpose of filming the whole thing really was just to show the client, the person who'd asked for the commission, just for fun, really, just an added little bonus to show them their house being painted. So this is the client's house. I know, right? And they're from Texas. So, they do everything bigger in Texas, hey? And they wanted a really big commission. I think they wanted it to be like 2 foot by 3 foot or something like that. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't know if I can do that. And then there's postage from the UK to the US as well. So actually what we decided upon and we compromised on regarding size, I think it was around 12 by 16 inches. I think it was just a fraction over A3 for those of us in Europe and the UK and whatnot. So for me, that is huge. I mean, the largest I've ever sketched anything is A4, which is half this size. So yeah, I was like, this is certainly going to be a challenge. And actually, I did a few test sketches, did some in my sketchbook and that kind of thing. And then I eventually got the courage up to draw on this nice watercolor paper. This is Bockingford paper, cold press 300 GSM. So I got the courage up to do this and I actually drew it out, and it was I just kept getting the proportions completely wrong, and I was getting myself into a bit of a, not a state, but I was getting a bit anxious about it all because I was like, how am I not getting this right? And it wasn't until I realized that I was drawing in a completely different ratio, completely different size of watercolor paper to what the photograph was. The photograph was quite a lot wider and narrower, and I'm drawing on more of a, kind of wide rectangle paper, for lack of better terms, but the ratio wasn't the same. So I think that's where I was going wrong. And actually, interestingly, one of my students brought that up in the Sketchy Adventures course, where she was having difficulties translating the thing in the photograph, which let's say was like an 8:10 ratio, 8:10 inch, into a square format sketchbook. And I think that really can throw you sometimes, especially when you're sketching from photographs. So I actually took the photograph into Photoshop and I adjusted the size of it to the same ratio as my paper. And then I also put in some grid lines as well on the top on Photoshop. And then I just sketched it from that Photoshop image. So if you have something like that, any kind of photo editing software, even basic stuff where you can just put in grid lines over the top, or even if you print the photograph out and then draw some grid lines with a ruler, that's really going to help, especially when you're drawing something from a smaller photograph onto a bigger piece of paper. So that is that's one tip there for you. Anyway, so you can see in this sketch, obviously once I got to the pencil sketch, I started putting on the watercolor. And this client in particular had seen my video. I think it's called Easy Loose Sketch in ink and watercolor. I think that's what it's called. But it is by far my most watched video. I think we're up to 650,000 views on that video. I have no idea why, but it's really nice. But yeah, I think he saw that video and he was like, I want you to do my house in that style. So that's why I very purposefully painted the house in a loose watercolor fashion first, and then decided to draw over the top. It's not particularly a sketching process I always follow. It's just because he had very purposely asked for me to do this. So if he hadn't, I might have done it a different way. I might have drawn it out in pencil, then I might have gone to my fine liner, and then I might have gone into watercolor. and then maybe another layer of watercolour to bring out the depths, the shadows and that kind of thing, and then maybe another round of lines, etc., etc. That would probably be my normal process. But yeah, I deliberately did it this other way because of what he asked for. And I'm really glad I did. I'm really glad he asked me to do it that way, because I think it just worked so well on this piece. I was really happy by the end of it, how it was going. I promise you though, this was 6 hours of from painting onwards of of pure anxiety. No, I'm joking. It was really fun, but there were moments of anxiety where I was like, oh my God, if I mess it up now, I've done 3 hours plus pencil sketch, so maybe like 5 hours, and I'm just gonna have to start all over again. But the thing is, if you guys are starting to do commissions or you want to or whatever, it's so easy to get into your own head and start questioning everything and repeating to yourself that this isn't good enough. What am I doing? No one wants to buy this. He's gonna hate it, you know, all of those kind of negative self-talk. And actually, and I know this may sound a bit, what's the word, like, might sound a bit airy-fairy or hoodoo, or I don't know, whatever words you want to apply to it, but I find actually if I talk to myself in my head, I'm not crazy, I promise. If I talk to myself in my head and say, this is great, this is the best work I've ever done, I'm so happy with this, it's going so well, even if it's not. I just find my results are much better, and I'm not gonna lie guys, I kind of need to talk myself through these commissions, you know, especially something like this. It was really outside of my comfort zone, but I am so glad that Nagi, my client, asked me to do this, and I was honoured. For a start, I was honoured. And once we'd sort of figured out what he wanted and what size, agreed on a size, and I went away and just tried to figure out how I was going to post it to him and how much that's going to cost, because delivery, especially with couriers, is not cheap, you know. So that conversation had to happen up front. I didn't want to just whack him with a bill at the end and be like, oh, by the way, it's going to cost you $60 to ship this, you know, which is, I think, roughly what it did end up costing, maybe 50. And again, I didn't really know how to send it to him, but actually what I did in the end is I rolled it up and put it into a postage tube. I wasn't very happy about rolling my illustration that I just spent 6.5 hours on, but that is kind of the done thing for the bigger pieces like this, so I just had to suck it up. And I've spoken to Nagi, obviously this was this was back in May, I think, but I've spoken to him since, obviously. A, to make sure he got it, and B, just to make sure everything's okay, and he said it's fine. I think they're still in the process actually of getting it framed. They haven't found a nice frame for it, or nothing's been speaking to them yet, so hopefully he will send me a picture once it is framed, because I would love to see it. And let's just take a moment to appreciate what an amazing house this is. I mean, it's just incredible. You don't really see houses that look like this, you know, outside of, well, inside of the UK, unless it's like some kind of stately manor or something, you know. But this looks reasonably new. I can only assume that possibly they designed it themselves. I don't know, but it's such an interesting house. I really couldn't believe it when he sent me the photograph. All the lines that I'm doing here, I am using, I think, I'm trying to look at the video now, I think I'm using either a 0.1 or a 0.2. And the reason for that is just to get a nice kind of uniform line all the way around and not too thick, you know. And then later on I'll come in and I'll thicken any lines with a thicker fine liner. Anywhere where I want to add some visual weight, you know, like under some of the roof, under the roof, maybe under some of the bushes where there's shadows, that kind of thing. At the bottom of some of the windows perhaps, maybe the top of the door where there's a bit of a shadow. Anywhere where it just needs some thicker lines to emphasize certain parts, and also to bring certain parts forward. So that kind of roundish tower bit where the front door is, like that sits further forward than some of the rest of the building, so like emphasizing that just so it pushes it forward. anything you can do to just try and make it look less flat, you know, less 2D, that always adds a lot of emphasis and it always looks really good. So I am just using a standard piece of, just a bit of printer paper just to put under my hand because, you know, you don't really, especially on a commission, you don't want to really get any of your accidental hand oil. I know that sounds gross, but it's true. Hand oil on your picture because it may resist the watercolor. So really best to try and avoid that. And also, I mean, the pencil's pretty much covered up there, but just in case, you know, you like smudge any of the pencil lines or anything like that. So it is pretty handy to have a scrap piece of paper under your hand in this instance. And you know, you will notice I am going in and pretty much drawing every brick, but I don't know, the house was so bricky. I don't think that's a word. You know what I mean. It's hot here, guys. It's like 37 degrees. I'm like melting inside this room. Anyway, enough of the excuses. Yeah, I just felt it needed all the bricks, so I went for it. On some sketches, I'd say just indicate some of the bricks. That could have been something I went for here, but something just told me I wanted to like throw all of the details at this one and really go for it. And also I wanted to paint some of those bricks a different color as well, because in the photograph, like the bricks are not all one color, some of them are different. So I wanted the opportunity to do that. And you can see I've used a bit of quinacridone rose mixed in with the Payne's grey on the roof, and that's just to give it a bit of warmth, just to make it a bit more interesting. I didn't want to just paint it a flat grey. Same on the front of the building, I sort of, you know, put in, I think it's mainly sort of a quin gold or something like that. Notice I'm saying quin because I can't say the full word. That was a nice tip from one of my students. She was like, if you can't say it, just say quin. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, quin. You guys know what I mean. Oh, and here you can see I'm getting out my favourite paintbrush, for details at least, which is the Rosemary & Co. Travel Dagger Brush. And if you want to see any of the stuff I'm using, guys, by the way, feel free to click the link in the description below, which is over on Urban Sketching World, and it's a page with all of my recommended stuff or stuff that I use and links to buy them on Amazon or Jackson's or Dick Blick, depending obviously where you are and who you want to shop with, that kind of thing. So do go and check that out. They are all affiliate links, but it doesn't make any difference to you. It just means I might get $1 here and there if you decide to buy something. So here I'm getting out my secret weapons, and if any of you have seen that video where I discuss my secret weapons, spoiler alert, these are my secret weapons. So these are the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pens. They are the brush nib. I believe they come in a soft brush nib, but these are the brush nib. And they're the set of 6 shades of grey, so 3 warm greys and 3 cold greys. And I just really enjoy using these markers in conjunction with my watercolour sketching. And in fact, I had to go and re-watch the video that my client really liked because I'd actually forgotten what I did. I'd forgotten what my process was in that particular sketch. So when I went back and watched it, I realised, to my horror, that I used these Pitt Artist pens. And guess what I didn't take with me from South Africa to the UK? My Pitt Artist pens. So I actually had to buy another set of from Amazon, which luckily turned up the next day. There's some good things about Amazon, which is the ability to get things the very next day. So yeah, so I bought a whole new set. So now I have 2 sets, but that's fine. I do love them dearly, and I'm sure I'm gonna get through them in time. So and they're not too expensive. I want to say the most expensive I've seen them for is about £15, which is probably around $20. But I feel like I got these cheaper actually. Maybe they were a tenner, £10. Don't know, something around that range anyway. Well worth it though. They work great with watercolor. You can layer them up. They're water resistant, so they're not going to smudge. They're India ink actually, and they're light fast as well. So I had to check that before I bought them or used them on this commission. I was like, oh god, I don't know if these are light fast because I can't use them on this commission really if they're not light fast. So it was a nice finding that they are completely light fast. So that's fine. And you'll notice I was using my black brush pen there as well, which I believe was the Pentel pocket brush. It could have been the Copic one I have, but I don't think it was. I think it was the Pentel pocket brush, which is an awesome brush pen because it comes with cartridges, so you can keep refilling it, and it's a great pen, so highly recommend that too. So now you can see I'm going in with my smaller brush and I'm just trying to amp up some of the contrast. As you guys know, I love my contrast and I bang on about it all the time. But yeah, you'll see it as this sketch comes together, it will really start to pop. And I am sorry this video is really long, guys, but this was a 6-hour painting illustration, and if I sped it up any more than this, you kind of really lose the idea of what's going on, I think. So obviously you can click through as you would like, but then, you know, you'll miss my witty commentary, so, you know, up to you. So I've added the sky here, and this was probably the scariest part of this entire painting, because I just knew that this could, I was going to say a swear word, that I knew this could wreck it all. I really like this wet and wet technique here of putting in the bushes in the background. I think that came out really nice. Yeah, I think the sky came out okay, but I was stressing. This Bockingford paper is on a block right now. I bought it very specifically on a block, so I didn't have to take my paper down or anything, but it does still wrinkle. It does still get some waves, and obviously if you're doing a big wash like that and the paint settles in one of the valleys on the paper, then yeah, that's not great, and that is what happened here. But I think I managed to rescue it okay, and actually I'm quite happy with the sky. I think it's got a nice bit of texture in it. It doesn't really have any cauliflowers in it, any backgrounds, which is always the fear. So I think the watercolour gods were on my side there, and it came out all right, luckily. So yeah, just be aware on blocks, you know, especially if it's not 100% cotton, which this is not. Yeah, just be aware that it can still wrinkle, even though it's glued down on all 4 sides. So again, just going into places, darkening things up, adding some texture. It's feeling like it's really coming together now. So, you know, you might not even be able to tell what I'm doing in certain bits here, but it's all just bits and bobs, just trying to darken certain areas. Or here I'm just adding a bit of colour variation. As I mentioned earlier, I just wanted to add a few different coloured bricks. So again, this Rosemary & Co. 1/4 inch travel dagger brush comes in beautifully for doing fine little details like this because of that point that it's got. So you might notice I didn't do every single window black here on this sketch, and again I was just looking at my photo and I was like, I don't really want to do every single window black because it's just gonna, I don't know, seem all that visually interesting. So where they were really dark on the photo, I did them black, and then I used my Pitt Artist pens just to give some different window colors. And as you can see, I'm using my white gel pen over the top to add in the frames, which works really, really well. So, you know, I'm just constantly looking at the photo, looking at my illustration. You notice there I put down a piece of paper because I wanted to do a few splatters in the grass, and I did not want to get it on the rest of the picture. Again, just wanted to get a bit of texture in the foreground there. A lot of people ask me which gel pen I use. I haven't really found one that I really like, to be honest with you, but the one I'm using there is a Uniball Signo, which I'm leaning more towards than the Sakura Jelly Roll. I didn't really get on with that pen so well, but I know it's a favourite amongst a lot of urban sketchers. So again, just coming in with those Pit Artist pens and just adding some shadows. That's what they're really great for, because they're translucent, you know, so they just sit over the top of the paint really nicely and give that lovely shadow effect. If you haven't tried those pens, I mean, I really do highly recommend them for if you want to have a go at using them over your watercolor. They're just really cool. They're really fun. Certainly for adding shadows and stuff. It's yeah, they're good. So notice how I turn my page as well to get straighter lines. Don't be afraid to do that. Make sure you're using your whole arm and just turning your paper around so you can get like a nice angle where you can get that, use your whole arm to push that line or pull that line across. So yeah, I mean, I'm just adding some finishing touches here, but it's pretty much looking really good, I think. I'm really happy with it at this point, and I'm so glad I haven't messed it up. Sorry for my head keep getting in the way of the camera there. I was just recording this on my phone, actually, attached to the kitchen table, so occasionally my head gets in the way. So here, as I mentioned, just going around and just adding some thicker lines to certain areas just to try and bring a few bits forward and emphasize a few in a few places. But yeah, that is pretty much it, guys. That's kind of the final piece. My client was super happy with it, and I was too, actually. I couldn't believe I actually did something like this, and it was a really nice challenge. It pushed me a little out of my comfort zone. But yeah, I was just really happy with how this came out. And even though it was back in May, I just felt compelled to actually share this with you guys. I just thought you might find it interesting. As I said, some of you might be doing commissions yourselves, or you want to, or you might just want to see a bit more of what my process might look like if I was doing a commission. So I hope this was interesting, guys. I know it's a bit of a long one. If you're still here, thanks. And go watch more of my videos. Okay, I'll see you in the next one.